Hello everyone, my name is Serena Chang and I'm a senior studying marketing and finance. My presentation today is taking a deeper look into the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic to Asian American, and Pacific Islander, otherwise known as AAPI communities. This is going to be the outline for the presentation today. I'm going to start with the research question and go into an overview of the history of AAPI, immigration and activism. I will then talk about the methodology used for this product, and lastly, I will talk a little bit. My research question is, in what ways have AAPI communities been impacted by COVID-19? I will be taking a closer look into the physical/medical impact, bias and racism, the job opportunities for AAPI individuals, and immigration policies. Before moving into these specific impacts, I'm going to give a brief history on Asian Americans. A brief history on Asian Americans in the United States. The Exclusion Act was implemented in 1882 to restrict the amount of immigrants coming to the United States because they had started to take on more American jobs. This started to build the idea of yellow peril in America, and I'm going to go into that in the later slides. And then during the Second World War, the United States and China became allies, and they supported the U.S. in winning the war. However, there were many Japanese individuals who were moved to internment camps during the Second World War in reaction to the bombing of Pearl Harbor. These were some of the main events that have transpired to perpetrate the yellow peril and model minority myth. Now to go into a bit more detail about the model minority myth. Asian Americans were considered the model minority after slavery was ended in the United States. They were the desirable classmate, the favored neighbor, and the non-threatening person of color. The model minority argument often privileges generations based on surface-level analysis at the expense of more refined and nuanced investigations. So yellow peril is the fear that other races, and in this case, the Asian American race, will take away from American jobs. This was legalized with the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and is now propagated by a few world leaders, and currently this idealism still exists in American society today. The methodology of this research is grounded in Asian American studies through documentaries and curated speaker series, as well as media analysis of news articles, online and print testimonies, and social media articles. How are Asian Americans being affected by racism? Looking into the medical and physical impact, AAPI doctors and nurses have been on the front lines fighting against the pandemic. However, there has been an increase in the death of Filipino nurses as they make up 31.5% of nurse deaths in the U.S., even though they only accumulate for 4% of the total nurses in the United States. Some of the reasons for the deaths include increased exposure to the virus in order to earn more money to send back to their families overseas. In the recent year, the xenophobia and racism incidents against Asian Americans has increased since the pandemic began. Due to some important people in government and leadership calling COVID-19 the Chinese virus, many people of AAPI descent and physical features have been attacked because they quote-unquote brought the virus to America. This has also led to discrimination in the healthcare field. There are people out there unwillingly to be treated by Asian American healthcare officials. Since the beginning of the pandemic, there has been a big impact on Asian businesses in the U.S. AAPI individuals used to have the lowest rate of unemployment, but now have the highest rate of unemployment out of all demographics. Places like Chinatown have suffered greatly due to lack of business, and as a result, they have had to lay off their own employees, contributing to the high unemployment. In July of 2020, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department, otherwise known as ICE, had passed a directive stating that the international students had to either switch to a different university if their own did not offer any in-person classes, or leave the United States if their current university were to only offer online classes. They were not allowed to take any online classes. Many universities, including Harvard and MIT, filed lawsuits against ICE, and the directive was repealed. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my presentation. Please email me if there are any questions. Thank you.